I think my individual experience is connected very much with my Egyptian background. As I was born to a ordinary family in a village in North Egypt, and I started this traditional education for every children at that time. This was 65 years ago. To memorize the Quran, to study something. So the context of my village was a very, very, I wouldn't say tolerant. I mean, no, it was a context of people who are very good believer, Christians and Muslims. But they are very, they don't have this kind of claim of my conviction is the only truth and everything else is false. Even people who did not really, observe, daily duty, they were not really, chased by other people. They were, there are a lot of jokes about them, okay? Because the mosque in the village is a place also to wash up. Okay, there was no water in every house, but there was water in the mosque. So people sometimes go to the mosque just to wash up, and then they leave, and the other people would make jokes about them. I mean, without any kind of chasing or condemnation or something like that. I can also remember homosexuals in my village. We're known to everyone. Or your mother will tell you, don't mix with this guy, okay? They don't tell you that he is, but I mean, it's a very small space that, everything. So I brought up in this, in this context. I memorized the Quran. And then Egypt also was, in general, was like this kind of a space where Islam and Christianity, I mean, I did not recognize in my childhood or on my early years any kind of conflict or and then I went to school. Okay, of course we have Coptic with Muslim. Only we have to be separated when it comes to the lesson of religion. That's all. Okay, so the Copts have their own, Coptic teacher, and we have our, teacher. This, of course, when I grow up, I discovered this was wrong. Okay, because this is, being grown up and being, educated person. I discovered that I know nothing about the history of the Coptic Church, which is part of the history of Egypt. Okay, and I assume that that my also a Coptic child did not know much about Islam. This was wrong anyway, and this kind of segregation. Okay, when it comes to in the 60s, this is when I became a teenager, and started to read, because in my early age, I became responsible. My father died when I was 14, so I had to work and study in the meantime. So this kind of responsibility also gave me some sort of early manhood. Okay, so I became part of, interested in the public, what is going on in Egypt. But Egypt was, at that time in the 60s, a future-looking country. Okay, something is we all, we can understand what we are in because we are dreaming of a better Egypt. But equality was basically at that time women were giving right to education, even right to election, and so this was an era, and this is something I think I still believe in. Okay, things changed in the 70s. Dramatically changed in the 70s. And this dramatical change included also some kind of claim of Islamism by the president. So the political discourse, the political discourse of the state have shifted from a semi-secular state discourse into a religious discourse, claiming religion and all, employing all this religious symbolism in the speech of the president, etc., etc. This shifted, okay, everything. So this started to confuse me. Okay. Well, if Islam could be this version, and it was this version, and you find the ulama, I mean the clerk, they are defending all this, all this interpretation. They defended, the socialist Islam, okay, and they defended the capitalist Islam. Okay. As someone who came from a poor family, of course, socialism is appealing to me. So this kind of change in the political orientation and the social and the economic orientation of Egypt, and the change in the meaning of religion have brought to my mind a lot of questions. Okay, these questions grow up with me until I started to study in the university. And I started to study, Islamic studies. And so my basic question was about, the meaning of the Quran. Okay, how far the meaning of the Quran could be manipulated. This is annoying for me. I believed in the message of Islam as a message of equality and justice, and all this stuff. Because as someone from an ordinary poor family, I needed this, So this was my first, so I embarked in Islamic study by checking the different schools of interpretation in classical Islamic thought. I finish, a study. I come with more questions. Okay, until now. So questions are always coming back. It was surprising and shocking in the meantime to find how the meaning of the Quran was also subject to manipulation by different theological schools. And I wrote about this, about the strategy of getting what you want from the Quran, not really looking what the Quran signifies. Okay, and I think this is something that happened in the history of every scripture. Okay, you can find whatever you want. Okay, scripture. If you don't apply a rigorous, definition of what it is, what is the limitation. So from question to question, I came to the question: what is the Quran? I mean. So I was working on two levels most of the time. I mean, classical exegesis and classical methodology of approaching the Quran and the conflicting views concerning the meaning of the Quran, especially dealing with highly theological issues like free will, human free will, transcendency of God, like social justice, okay, all these issues. And in the meantime, studying deeply, Islamic philosophy and Islamic theology in a critical way. Okay, so you can say something about being, a responsible person in an early stage of my life, have contributed to elaborate my critical viewpoint. I don't have a father to impose on me, something like that. So it's, and in the meantime, Egypt at that time, the availability of knowledge, even outside, educational system, the translation of books, there was an availability of knowledge that you can gain books with very, very low, price. Okay, this was also a cultural renaissance in Egypt. This also enhanced this, critical view of life. You read at that time, okay, you read, existentialism, you read socialism, Marxism, okay, all these kind of philosophies are in Arabic, Arabic translation. You read literature of the world, okay, the Russian literature, the French literature, the Egyptian, the Arab literature. So this kind of richness, because of the availability, okay, and I was really, reading was the only hobby I had, okay. So I think life experience, the availability of knowledge, before I get embarked in university education, because I get to university education later, okay, I have to work. So this, you know, I think this, you know, what really gave me this kind of, you know, being able to question, not being afraid of questioning, okay. And all this life, I have never felt any kind of threat to my faith. On the contrary, I feel my faith becomes stronger, okay, as far as I'm very critical. I think that's why I believe in life experience, and I believe as a teacher here, okay, as a teacher, I never imposed my view as a teacher on my student. I never judged my students in the examination according to the agreement or disagreement with me. I used to encourage in Egypt, and of course it's easier in Europe to encourage a student to have counter view. But I used to do this in Egypt, okay, and I'm glad I did, because when all these problems came out about my work and, you know, all this, you know, allegation of apostasy, at least my student, okay, who graduated, you know, some 10 years ago or 15 years ago, were like, you know, found it, you know, very, 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 because they know me, they know that, you know, this makes me a defender of reason, a defender of critical study of everything, a defender of, you know, of dialogue and conversation. And as much as I am anti-fundamentalism in religion, I am anti-fundamentalism in any other system of thought. Let's say secularism could be a fundamentalist secularism. Liberalism could be a fundamentalist. Any claim of holding truth against other claims, I consider a form of fundamentalism. And I taught a course in the university about fundamentalism in all worldly views. So I hope this explains, you know, who I am. Whether, I mean, of course, when I'm also should say something, I learn a lot from my student, and I believe in the future, and I encourage my students to be critical of my, because without this kind of continuous criticism, thought would not really develop. Okay, I don't want it to be, you know, a charisma to be imitated. I don't want it to be imam. Okay, I'm just, you know, a scholar that doing my best, but any conclusion I reach should be checked. Okay, and sometimes I'm very, very happy to read in my student dissertation, MA and PhD, criticism of my thought. I encourage, you know, this kind of criticism. No one should claim, you know, this kind of absolute knowledge. Otherwise, we will create another fundamentalism.